around, you have these conversations on a smaller scale, and you really run the risk of losing friendships because of it. So, I mean, that being said, going back to the artistic issue, I think that it's kind of the basis for our idea of courage culture, which was to take artists of all different types and really put our talents towards achieving the goal, which is what we want is to change their hearts and minds, unchange them from what they've kind of been pigeonholed into this way of thinking, and just to kind of use our talents to sway. I guess we could say it's propaganda. I mean, that's any kind of using art is basically propaganda, but towards the good, towards the right.
And exactly, and I don't think that courage today, is the rarest of qualities because it's the most costly. And if you think about it, think about the people that they attack in this conversation. Think about in the last couple weeks, and if an African American comes on, and Charles Barkley, I keep hearkening back to that because I think he's really a model of what we want people to do. If you believe something, if you know something is true, if you know you're supposed to take a right and the crowd is going left, you have to have the courage. This nation was not built on PC cowardice. We need to have real conversations. And in order to do that, you have to influence your circle of friends. You have to influence your society. You have to influence, start with the micro and go to the macro. And that is going to require courage. To speak truth to race is going to be requiring courage. To speak truth to power is going to require courage. And I think it has to start with the people of the United States.
In this hostile environment, it's going to cost you. I mean, there's no way around it. It's going to cost you, and we have to realize that, and we have to be willing to stand up like so many people before us did.
Hey, Luke, thanks for coming on, man. If you want to check out more segments like this, the Courage Culture, courageculture.net is our website, and the Brock Lawley Show has a segment called Courage Culture Commentary where I talk to Luke about everything under the sun, movies, etc. Thank you for being with me, Luke. Appreciate it.
Hey, thanks for having me.
Take care. So, I mean, look, here's the thing. I know I don't have a perspective like everybody else, and I know if I grew up in a different socioeconomic environment, if I grew up in a different cultural environment, I would see things differently. But my point is that we are all entitled to our own experiences and our own opinions, but we're not entitled to our own facts. And what's startling about the world I live in now is you can take the case in Ferguson and so many other instances, and facts are simply powerless. Truth is neutered. Truth, the last profanity in the modern world, is never allowed to enter the conversation. And I think it's because people are terrified of it. And every time somebody does it, they are beaten down. This is the last time I'm going to mention it, but Charles Barkley came out in the midst of a total storm and really just had enough courage to speak his mind. Even if people didn't agree with him, the level of attack, personal attack, professional attack, does that not tell people, is that not the canary in the coal mine of our society, that this is not America, this is not who we are, this is who we're being cattle prodded into being? Toll styles and toll booths of racial discussions and racial categories. Listen, back in the day, the United States of America had citizens. Today we have little fractionalized slices of the pie. You have old white, you have young voter, you have black voter, Hispanic voter, gay voter, straight voter. This is evangelical Christian voter. We're not meant to be divided up like that. And you'll notice every conversation we have, think about how they describe the people talking. Think about how they describe the context of the conversation. They'll even introduce people like that with their little citizen tag. I would argue, and I'm hoping that I can convince you, that whether you agree with me politically or not, it's not the point. We are being distracted. We are being divided for a reason, so that we're not united, so that we don't look at the real substantive issues that we face as a country, and there are many. And this is used and wielded for political purposes. Ladies and gentlemen, there was a story that broke this week that these spontaneous, quote-unquote spontaneous things you're seeing in New York City, there is dozens and dozens of leftist groups that have organized and financed this stuff. This isn't my opinion. Again, you can research this. Google this. This stuff is politically motivated, and what we need to do, the air in the room, the oxygen in the room, is real, candid, heartfelt conversation with one another, despite the pigment in our skin, despite where we come from, despite our sexual orientation. Real conversations, which are the enemy of political correctness, are the only things that can save us. I'm going to come back and give you the good news. We'll take a breath. We'll come back. We'll talk about something a little bit more encouraging. The Brock Lawley Show on iHeartRadio, courageculture.net. BrockLawleyMusic.com is where you can check out the music. The bumpers are my music. And we'll be right back, 419-529-1400.
It started with a whisper, now it's built into a script.
The Brock
ladies and gentlemen. We're on the home stretch here. I got another nice chunky segment with you. And I'm gonna tell you some good news. I'm gonna tell you some good news here because we just hit it hard on the politics side. So apparently cops are the latest test dummy, I suppose, societally. You can take punches and undermine, and even the White House is able to do that. But I'm going to tell you, I came upon a story that made me feel pretty good, and it's involving two cops. So a young black girl calls 911. She's real young. She's playing with the phone, her and her little sister. I actually remember doing this as a child. And the police pick up, and, you know, she talks about how she's real sad because she's not going to have a Christmas. You know, they don't have the money. They're in a bad situation, and this sweet little girl is telling this story. Well, the two police officers actually come in and, you know, check out the situation. I guess that's policy or whatever when you call 911, where they see that there's a, you know, sparse amount of furniture, there's nothing around, there's nothing in the refrigerator, so on and so forth. So they leave, they spend their own money, they go get a tree and presents and decorations and all the trappings and food and everything else, and they bring it back to the family. This is, of course, all their own money. And interestingly enough, the police chief said that this is the heart of the vast majority of police officers, that they do have good intentions. I think the fact that you literally have people in the United States thinking that cops are just driving around looking for specific people to gun down like dogs is preposterous in and of itself, not to say that this is not sometimes the case. I mean, you know, that's just, we're adults. We know that people have hate in their heart. But my word, if you think about it, which leads me to believe, by the way, on a side note, did you know that cops, by and large, cops and firefighters, I got a bunch of friends which are both, they predominantly, because of their union situation, vote for the Democrats. If you think about the last couple weeks, they have just been hammering cops, throwing cops under the bus. Something to think about. I don't really know why the political loyalty to a party that clearly is not a friend of the police officer. Okay, ladies and gentlemen, here's another really cool story. I got a lot of friends, even my mentors, always dogging on the internet, specifically Facebook, and I have to admit he makes a lot of good points. We vicariously live our lives through these social media channels, etc. Well, here's a story where social media actually stepped up. You got 100 Facebook friends showed up to back this bullied student and come to his defense. So this kid was getting bullied in a high school. His aunt came to visit him, and you know, people were really hammering on him. You got no friends, and you know they were threatening to beat him up. Well, apparently this aunt's involved in this car club on Facebook. They have these groups. She sends out this notice. 50 cars arrive at this school, clogging the school. They all stand behind this bully, and it was really, really touching video. They have a video of this, and the actual kid who bullied saw this show of support for the kid and offered a sincere apology, high-fived him, apologized. It was kind of cool because, you know, you're always hearing that Facebook friends aren't real. I happen to be in agreement with that. I think we sort of delude ourselves into thinking that these long lists of friends are real. But in this case, I have to admit, they materialized, didn't they, in tangible form to support this kid. And lastly, this is another really, really cool one. You're always hearing about the evils of business, right? It's like a nationalized, status-approved blood sport today. Anybody with any money or success, you're allowed to just continuously bash. Well, there's this couple in Portland. I love this because a lot of my buddies are really into these high-end cars. There's this couple in Portland that has this sports car collection. Cobras, Lamborghinis, Ferraris, Porsches. You know, those things you dreamt about in middle school when you were supposed to be doing your math homework. Anyway, they have these garages full of this stuff. Well, they have this program where they take these kids battling life-threatening illnesses, and they allow them to choose a supercar, and then they allow their parents to choose a supercar, and then they go on this awesome ride all day, and they film it, and they give them all these pictures, and you know, it cheers up the kid, gives them an opportunity he would have never had. You get a guy in a Lamborghini going, you know, 80 miles an hour. Don't forget about his problems. It's pretty awesome. Forget about the doctors. Forget about the treatments, the needles. And you got to see this. There's pictures of this. I get this up on CourageCulture.net if you're interested. Really heartwarming stuff. Ladies and gentlemen, there are people that are doing wonderful things in the world. Wonderful things. The United States is a wonderful place. We are a wonderful people. We are not our government. So on Thursday, I went and played the Renaissance right down here in Mansfield. And boy, that was a treat. That wasn't the first time I was in there, but it was the first time I was on stage. I did a little barbershop. I cut my barbershop teeth with Rusty. You saw me up there embarrassing myself, and then I sang you a couple of originals. Had a little technical difficulties, but I had to muscle through that by way of the sound system. But it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to meet some people. Again, such a showing of this area. Several hundred people out there. And you got to just kind of put your head in the Christmas spirit. It was great because these months and weeks can kind of, rather these days and weeks can kind of just wash over us if we don't take time and really think about the season. So that was fun. And interestingly enough, after I got done with doing that, I had an interaction with a friend of mine, and he lectured me thoroughly on the Christian insistence on saying Merry Christmas. And it reminded me of a segment that I wanted to do a number of weeks ago and I didn't get to. And it is this notion that we have these culture wars in December. We always do this. I have just this heartbreaking sickness about it. And I have some insight into this whole culture war thing that I don't hear people say, but I think they should. And, it's usually about the word Christmas. We need to be more. You hear these words like tolerant, inclusive, right? You've heard all this stuff. This has probably been going on before I was even born. And it's this idea that, we're going to be offending people or it's intolerant. The whole thing's, of course, preposterous. But what I think is interesting is that you never, listen, nobody's actually offended by Christmas. Everybody knows that, right? We're all adults. We know this is a charade. If you're actually, I'll stop and I'll allow room for something that maybe I don't understand. If you are offended by Christmas, you're unwell. There are programs. You can sit down on couches with professionals. You can work that stuff out. No, what we're really dealing with here is cultural bullies, right? You know it. I know it. The people doing it know it. Why do they do this? Because it works. You flippantly throw around this PC arsenal and you shut people down. The squeaky secularist wheel gets the oil, that kind of thing. The real question society should be asking is, what do fringe killjoys, so much coldness in their heart, so much hate in their heart, that they're willing to trample on a timeless and cherished tradition that so many, the vast, vast majority of the American people, their neighbors, their family, their coworkers really enjoy? What is going on here? Well, I thought of an interesting analogy. I think this is true. You remove all the hollow rhetoric, all the stuff, and what you really get is narcissism. I'm sorry. That's really what you're getting. Robbing a nation of its most cherished Christmas holiday. That's what you're doing. You're a narcissist. And I thought of an analogy. Think about this. This isn't original, but I heard this, and I thought this was watertight. So suppose you're raising some kid, and you take a kid. Let's call this kid Johnny. Pretty traditional American name. You take this kid to a birthday party, and there's signs for another kid's name. I don't know, Jimmy or whatever. Happy birthday, Jimmy. And Johnny is just offended. He's throwing some fit, yanking down signs that say, happy birthday, Jimmy. All the cake's not for him. Presents aren't for him. What would you call this boy? You would call this boy a brat, probably. You would say this boy needs some refining from his parents. Perhaps you would even go as far as to say this boy needs taking over his grandfather's knee. And, I know the NFL is frowning upon that. But, old school discipline. Maybe you might even think that. Ladies and gentlemen, what you would see is a kid who is a narcissist. Well, all you see in the culture war are grown-up narcissists. That's all that's happening here. Offended. That's the thing we hear, right? Everybody's offended by this. Well, if let's ask yourself, are more people offended by a sign that says Merry Christmas, or are more people offended by taking it down? 79% of the American people favor this stuff. That's almost 80% of the American people. Try to get 80% of the American people to agree on anything. How about inclusive? I think it's amazing. It's a most beautiful thing that the American people, a melting pot nation, invite everybody, the far reaches, the cultures from everywhere to celebrate in this wonderful holiday. I've never been to a Christmas party where they're like, you're not a Christian, get to step and get out. I've never heard about this in my life. It's one of the most inclusive times of the year. Brotherly love, selflessness. And then you hear that, well, let's call it a holiday. Let's just call it some generic holiday. But what about people who, don't celebrate holidays? I know the Jehovah's Witnesses don't. So you follow this to its end conclusion. What you have is you have nothing. You have pablum, and that is what secular extremism is doing to our society. Ladies and gentlemen, Merry Christmas to you. So sorry to end on such a negative note. I will tell you that there is wonderful people, wonderful things happening all around you. Look for opportunities to serve one another. Look to be a people of character and culture. Remember, if you want the show throughout the week, the Brock Lawley Show on iHeartRadio. It's an iHeartRadio app. You can get it all week long. And always, WMANFM.com for your local news, sports, everything. Thank you for joining me. My name is Brock Lawley. Be back next week.